Hello and welcome to the Singularity Syndicate podcast. I'm Naja Faysal. Today's conversation is with Dr. Jose Munoz, Assistant Dean of the Student Success at CSUSB, where we discuss AI in higher education. Dr. Munoz is renowned for his work on educational inequalities, and he leads several impactful academic programs. And now, here's Dr. Jose Munoz. Welcome to the program, Dr. Jose.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Happy to join you in this conversation. How are you doing?
Doing great. Tell us more about your journey. How did you get into sociology and STEM education?
So I am the assistant dean for student success here at Cal State San Bernardino, and I do participate in several programs, as you mentioned. I graduated with my PhD in sociology at SUNY Stony Brook in 2008, and I got hired here at Cal State San Bernardino in 2011. And now I am full professor, thank you very much, and assistant dean of student success, as I mentioned. And I I participated in a lot of different projects while I've been here on campus, and I know some of the areas that are specifically of interest to this meeting of ours and to the campus. I I work on first gen working class issues, particularly the trajectories of graduate students and faculty through academia from first gen and working class backgrounds, and where they land, how do they experience graduate school, what kinds of challenges they face.
I have to say, if I may interrupt you here,
Yeah.
I have to say that you're quite famous on campus. So, for those who don't know, Dr. Jose, his beautiful photos are all over the campus. He's quite a popular figure. Every time I walk through the cafeteria, I saw you surrounded with like a lot of people all the time. I think students really, really like you, as well as like the staff and the other professors. How did you get this charisma? Like, how did you get all these people um, befriending you?
Well, I I I I like to call myself the the unofficial official face of the campus, and it's really connected to a lot of my more recent work. That was a joke, everybody. I'm not, I'm not. I'm,
So
I'm just kidding around, but I think I've always tried to reach out to students, and I want to help them. I think after talking to me, I do feel that most students get that sense that I want to help them, that I want to lend, give a lot of free advice, and I think the staff and faculty feel that as well, and I think they've also come out to engage with me in of different kinds of initiatives or projects on campus. But yeah,
yeah, I
that
have personal experience with that, like firsthand. I sent you an email. I was like, oh, I hope you responded, and then you gracefully responded, and we had a coffee on campus, and it was like a fun,
yeah,
engaging
yeah.
conversation we had there.
It's
And I
important to
can
do that.
sense what you were just talking about. I can sense that you're someone
This
who
is
really genuinely
university.
cares about student success and about about the campus as well. Like I can sense also the dedication, the love for Cal State CSUSB or Cal State
Yeah,
San Bernardino.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
I grew up in San Bernardino.
oh, you did?
Yeah, I went to high school at Cajon High, which is just across the street from our campus, and my parents still live in the area. So yeah,
That's
this
amazing.
campus means a lot to me, and the community as well. And my family's been a part of San Bernardino for the last, I mean, nuclear and extended family for the past 70 plus years. I mean, that's how
I
far back.
wonder how was San Bernardino at the time? Because right now, I came 3 years ago almost to San Bernardino, and I was Googling it before I came, right? And it was like
Yeah.
the highest crime rate in America and all of that bad stuff. I wonder when you were growing up in San Bernardino, was it always like that?
No, no, you can look at the economic structure of the region and how things have changed very rapidly. I mean, National Public Radio did a story, 10 years back and brought up the fact that the community of San Bernardino used to be referred to as Payroll City. We had Norton Air Force Base. We had a major rail line hub um, that closed down. So those two things either closed down or moved, along with some other very important employers. And so that began to change the way the community was able to adapt, right? I mean, that happens in a lot of major cities. But yeah, in terms of growing up here, I mean, it was always a great place to live. There was a lot more open spaces than I think you could. I mean, if you looked at the surrounding areas, maybe 30 years ago, it wouldn't have looked like there's a lot more development and apartment buildings, stuff like that. Um,
I want to know more about the STEM education that
mhm.
you're involved in, and also what brought you into sociology and why it's important. Like people look at these majors and they are not sexy anymore. Like the sociology and philosophy, the humanities side of things. They're not in trend these days. Why do you think that is, and what made you choose sociology as a major, like back when you were choosing?
Well, I was an ethnic studies major, UC Irvine, and yeah, then I discovered I took a class in sociology, and I realized that it helped explain a lot of the questions that I had regarding the experiences of marginalized racial and ethnic groups in this society, and I ended up double majoring. And I also like the research component of it. There was a professor that allowed me to work on her project where she was looking at um, how union activity was monitored back in the 1940s and 50s, and she basically had me go through redacted FBI files for the ways in which union organizers, activists were monitored. So I got a really good sense of what research was like, and I've always liked that part of it. Um, I'm going to go ahead and push back a little bit about on the sexiness of sociology. I think sociology has become much more public in the sense that we participate in various venues, right? Biden to serve as the scientific lead director for many of the initiatives in the U.S. government, and I think we do have a lot of impact. And in terms of Cal State San Bernardino, we have a ton of sociology majors. So students are interested in the major. I like to tell people that sociologists can take on the world in a way a lot of other disciplines cannot. I think we can go into business schools, medical schools, law enforcement agencies, educational systems, and provide a sociological approach, an imagination, a way in which the society operates, and how we understand group dynamics, social forces, and how can we use this knowledge to make organizations, communities better. My link into STEM has been very interesting, and I'm glad you brought this up because it's another major area of my work right now, apart from the first gen working class research that I'm doing. As we've talked, STEM is a very important field, and it gets a lot of resource through a summer program held by RAND for faculty interested in public policy. And so, with my colleague, Idalis Villanueva, who's associate professor at the University of Florida, we started talking about potential projects that we could participate in. And so that's how it started. We have working with an engineer to think about how might we understand certain questions. And eventually we awarded a $100,000 grant to study Latino STEM faculty in the Cal State University system. And so we held a conference where we collected information about Latino STEM faculty who are part-time positions. And we recruited faculty from 10 campuses. So, and it was great. We were able to understand their experiences and get to know them. And we were able to write some papers based on this project. There's other STEM projects that I'm working on. Cynthia Crawford asked me to participate on what's called a NIH Supplement Award for her undergraduate program. And with another colleague, we developed what's called an NIH Coyote Research Fellows Program, where it's basically an intro for students to understand the possibilities in behavioral and biomedical research. So that's just an additional project. And then finally, the project that I'm very excited to get started on is with my computer science colleagues on campus. We were awarded a $2.5 million NSF Experiential Computing and Engaged Learning Scholarship Award, where I don't do the computer science stuff. The computer scientists are going to work with students who who are Pell Grant awardees and students who have financial needs on culturally responsive or community engaged computer science. Basically, the way I like to explain it is what kinds of questions can we have students explore that are grounded in their community? Are there problems where they grew up, where they were socialized that computer science can perhaps address, or perhaps there's a problem that can be the beginnings of some other computer science project. My part on the project will be a lot of mentorship, guidance, thinking about what research is, thinking about what it means to imagine collecting information, at least at a preliminary stage, in one's community. And this is actually very exciting for me.
I think you're making me change my stance on sociology right now. But I love the intersection of like how, computer science and STEM majors, because eventually, this is all about, even right now, like the topic of our discussion is AI in education, or AI. There's
Yeah.
definitely convergence between technology, and there's always impact on society, and there's always these fields. Yes, we like to separate them in college, right? Like we have majors for each specific field, but
Yeah.
if you look at the big picture, all of these converge, all of these have influence over each other. I remember in that coffee meeting we had, I kind of introduced you to ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, what do you think about the social impact of this kind of technology, to have intelligence made out of silicon chips that you can basically talk to a machine that is really could potentially be as intelligent as a human being. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think this would mean to us as humans?
Well, I think there are a lot of important benefits and then some challenges when we think about this technology. I think what it can do to save people's time is a valid and important way to think about this technology. Um, it is from an educational standpoint. It is exciting to think about. Just reflecting on that earlier coffee conversation, is how might this technology help students pick out their course schedules, or find resources on campus if they can engage in a way that allows them or to interface with a website or our campus website in order to do so. So that's very helpful. That can reduce frustration. It can reduce the amount of time people take in figuring out where they need to go. So that's very good.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. Just to mention this to the audience, because this is something like internal. Me and you had a conversation, and then probably the audience don't know about it. Is because my master's thesis is studying conversational user interfaces, and I've actually developed a chatbot that is not your typical bubble. Remember, like when you go to these websites and you see this little bubble.
yeah,
So I've developed an actual chatbot that consumed all the information on the website, and it can converse with the website users at will. I used it myself to really extract like little information. For example, so I went to the graduation ceremony, and I had a lot of questions about like, oh, where do we
congrats.
go and what do we do? And you know what? Like finding this information on the website is not as easy as you might think.
Yeah.
So I ended up using my chatbot, say, oh, how do I do this? And then the chatbot really answers me much better than if I would go to the website and look for that information. So that was kind of mind blowing for me.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways you can revolutionize how we do this kind of advising and guidance. I think you should let the dean of your college know, and I mean really, because I think it can help a lot of students. And I think there are other topics like improving the research process. Making it a little bit faster, particularly the literature review process. For anyone who's written a literature review or done any library research, a lot of times you sort of have to dig through a lot of things in order to find that golden nugget, and that can consume a lot of time. So if Chat GPT can help this process, and that's also a very important tool. Um,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up this part. I wanted this because this is
yeah,
really a big passion of
yeah,
mine.
sure.
So what? So my experience with doing my literature review in the age of ChatGPT, and I'm going to tell you the good things and the bad things, right? So the good things is that it can help you brainstorm a topic that is of
Hmm.
interest. There's a need for it, like right, say it's a gap in the research. So you could brainstorm that with ChatGPT very effectively. However, when you ask it, okay, to list down the top 10 research papers on that particular topic, it tends to fabricate these papers. And it's
Mm.
so crazy because they look so legit. They look so, that's kind of a title that you would see in a normal research paper. And then take that
Yeah.
title, put it in Google Scholar, it
Yeah,
does
and then
not
that's
exist.
I'm
It
glad you pointed
literally
that out.
hallucinates the whole thing, right? So
I think
that's something really remarkable. Another thing is that so people who want to rely on these biographies, they have to be really careful about what to look for. Another good use case when it comes to my literature review was that um, when you look at other research papers, you look at the abstract part,
hmm
where basically it summarizes what this paper found or what's the interesting point. But usually the abstracts don't get into all the details. And sometimes you're approaching your research from an angle that the intention of that original research paper that you're looking into, they didn't thought about. So in the abstract, it's missed completely. However, the research
right.
paper that you're
hmm
interested in might have the information you need, but it's not available in the abstract. So I used something called Claude AI, which is at the time had bigger context window than ChatGPT. So I could dump a whole PDF of research paper
hmm
that has maybe hundreds of pages, and I will ask that AI to extract, oh, does this paper talk about
hmm
chatbots? And then this AI will crawl into these pages and then it will tell you if it does or does not. So I find this really interesting when it comes to research. As you said, it speed up the process dramatically.
Yeah, I think it can, and I mean the other way. I mean the more laborious way would be to use the find function for all these articles and start to search, and that so I can see the benefit of that. But you actually pointed to one of the things that's worrying is how do we teach students to think about resources and how to use legitimate uh, papers and research articles for support, and sort of how to understand that this idea that the technology itself could produce something that isn't actually real, and how do you what are the next steps to sort of understand that, right? If you're getting all of these manufactured articles, a student might actually think, oh, this is okay to use, right? And without proper mentorship on that, that student could get into serious trouble by referencing articles that don't exist, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know that the people creating these artificial intelligence um, companies or products are looking into that. I mean, I follow the news of AI religiously, and I know that accuracy and fact checking is something that they are really focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's at the moment it wouldn't be like solely reliable to only rely on products like ChatGPT. And also, I think many universities, including CSUSB, they have these tools to to check if this text is written by ChatGPT or not.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a good idea or a bad idea to just have these tools and mark ChatGPT content as plagiarism?
Well, so one idea I had while you were thinking is how can the technology improve someone's writing? So you write a paper, you spend a few hours on it, and then you consult ChatGPT with certain sections of it. I don't feel like that is plagiarism, because you create. I mean, plenty of people might go to the writing lab and get some extra consult from a peer advisor, a peer tutor, and get some really good feedback on how to fix a paper and or delete this, add this. So I think that seems like a fair use of it. I think the worrying part is if someone were to use ChatGPT to create something that they didn't actually put any thought into, they just put in some functions or asked for some things and began to splice things together. I don't pretend to understand the technology that well, but if the person using the technology didn't actually create something but had the technology do it on its own, then I that is a problem, and I think that is a kind of plagiarism. Um, we check for this all the time through Turnitin, which is the function we use through our Canvas, and there are others. I mean, you shouldn't use other people's words. But using this other technology and passing it off as your own, I think, is really the part where we have to figure out, like, what
Yeah,
are the fine lines in it there. Like,
but
I'm still having trouble figuring out how to use this, or how to mentor students better. But I think
like
it's fair to use. Yeah.
for example, what you mentioned, right? Let's say you wrote the bulk of or the bulk or the structure of this paper, and then you put it in ChatGPT to improve your writing, and then you submitted that paper versus someone sitting at home. He had this paper to do and he was lazy and didn't do anything, and he went to ChatGPT last minute, write some prompt, and then
Mhm.
voila, it published. How would you tell which one is which? Like if you were to grade that work, you wouldn't be able to
Okay.
differentiate.
So this is a great question. I think so. So students out there, you want to be careful about how you use this technology. Not that an overwhelming amount of you out there would use it in this way, but let's say the what is produced begins to use sources without proper citation, right? Without proper reference. Okay, so if that is possible, then I guess it's difficult to say whether or not the you can say that the system created it, but what you want to be careful of is that this particular technology set you up to submit something that isn't correct, right? So if some sort of resource or reference or formula is suddenly is in your paper, but you had no, I mean, a professor could invite you into their office hours and ask, okay, well, how did you come about using this sophisticated statistical model or this description of percentages that have no basis other than what you noted, right? So I think that's probably on the student side something to be careful of. Okay. Um, and then the also, just so you know, the system itself begins to tag things that it recognizes as chat GPT source. So if, let's say, you submit a paper or someone submits a paper and 50% of it is chat GPT, um, then the instructor is going to know.
Yeah,
Uh,
but what if I wrote, like, as you rightfully said in the beginning, like, what if I actually wrote most of it? I just gave it to ChatGPT to fix my writing. Like, I'm an international student. My writing is not probably
yeah,
at the par of native speakers. So it
yeah.
would be very much helpful
I
for me
think,
to be able to write at the same level.
yeah, I think what professors need to start to consider is some sort of, well, I mean, it opens up a lot of discussion and protocols, I think, but I think it would be fair. I mean, the instructor gets to do however they want to design their class. They should have the right to do so, and they have the right to decide how to evaluate something. But one option I would say is uh, uh, have some sort of process where you come in with your paper and say, "Look, this is the shape that it's in. You could submit it." Uh, I mean, so under your particular scenario, you could have a pre-submission. There should be any chat GPT in that paper. You're just showing the professor, look, this is where I'm at. And I would like to use this paper with the technologies to improve my writing for some of the examples you've already given. And I think that would be an interesting way to use the program,
I
right?
love this idea. Oh
Yeah,
my God. Honestly,
yeah.
you just blew my mind, professor, because this is so smart. Like, basically, you tell your professor that here's what I'm thinking of. This is the structure that I'm thinking of. And you give them notice that say, hey, I'm gonna use ChatGPT to elaborate on that topic or to elaborate on that section.
Well, let me correct you. I mean, I think that's another option. I think that is also credible, but I mean to actually write the thing first
Hmm.
and show the prof and then put it through the process, because that way there isn't any, well, I mean, basically you need to come up with a way to prompt the professor, or the professor's got to be open to this idea that, hey, I want to use this process or I want to use this program. um, I'm not trying to get around my work, but I want to use the program to improve. And I think that's a fair discussion to have. Faculty member might still say no, but I think it's fair to say that I want to do this. I would like to do this. And maybe over time professors use it because we're still sort of trying to catch up, right? We're trying to catch up to how to use this, and I think some profs don't care, then that's fine. They're like, you know, and that's their particular right to do so. Their academic and creative freedom that they have with their own particular course. But I think this discussion is worthy between faculty and students, right? I think when you enter a class, you are agreeing to some kind of contract. And if the professor wants to engage students with ChatGPT in some way, um, that is okay. I also think it's fair for students to begin to approach faculty about it, right? In a professional way, in office hours, and speak to this idea like I want to do well in your class. I want to use the program to improve, because I don't want to rely on my particular writing style, and I think maybe the writing lab isn't always as efficient, or you can't always make writing lab hours. I mean, I think there are a range of examples and experiences that students have that could make this technology relevant.
I want to linger more about this discussion because, as you
Mhm.
said, it's worthy of discussion. It's very
Mhm.
important. Some people think that this technology is putting higher education under a lot of stress, and educators around the globe under a lot of stress, because it's really hard to cope with something like that. Because if you look at the essence, why do we teach people? Why why people subscribe to a class? And the reason is that these students in general want to learn something.
Mhm.
I opt in for Dr. Jose's class because I want to learn something about the topic or the subject or the class that he teach, right? So if I have no idea and I need to submit a paper, and I went to ChatGPT, I prompted, okay, here's the paper question, and I have no idea about the subject. I haven't read the book or haven't read anything. And then ChatGPT gave me that beautiful paper. Now, I have a choice, two things as a student. I can either submit it blindly and literally go back to sleep knowing nothing about the subject, or I can actually spend some time to read what ChatGPT gave me. Instead
Mhm.
of reading the book, I could probably read what ChatGPT gave me. That hits two birds in one stone. It basically allows me to read and learn from that machine. In the end of the day, a book is a device, is a machine. And so does ChatGPT, and so does Google, and so does the calculator. So if this machine is giving me that information and I read it and I study it, and then the next day in your class I went there and I said, well, I used ChatGPT to write this thing, and I was blown away by the amount of depth it says, and look at this point that it mentioned that I didn't think about before. So now you have a different dynamic of education that didn't exist before.
Yeah, I think I think when we think about technology in the classroom, it's advanced quite a bit. I mean, uh, 15 years ago, you would have had professors being very upset about students bringing their laptop to campus and using it in the classroom, right? Um, and now, I mean, partly because we have different generations of people teaching, and sort of their own sort of rethinking of how technology can serve a classroom. There's sort of there's a lot more flexibility around how to use this technology. I I think I think the examples you're giving in some ways is no different from a student sitting in class and Googling, right? Something the professor just brought up, or the professor asks a question the student doesn't know, so they start Googling, which is it's fine. Uh, but I think that the scenario you just gave uh, can be done, but through a more laborious process. And I think that's comes back to our one of the central things we've been talking about is how does the technology speed up the process, right? Because there are right? Any or most sociology books, manuscripts, they have what's called a book review, right? So you could, I mean, there's entire journals dedicate themselves to book reviews, right? That you could read about what someone thought about a particular book, in about a page and a half, single spaced. And so that would break down what you need to know about a book and whether you wanted to check out that book or buy that book and use it to further your study, right? And certainly, um, right, in my own research, I Google stuff all the time when I'm either trying to increase or expand my own work, looking for what others have said. And it's a very valuable tool. Um, I think again is how do students recognize what Chat GPT, what content emerges. If it's all credible, then I would say that it is valid to use. And I think this is also part of what you were asking is, how do we know? How do we know that what we're referencing is actually um, something that you could use in the classroom, right? But no, I think in this way the technology could be very useful. Um, it could allow a student to review. It could allow a student to think a little bit bigger about the questions of the day from their class. I think there's a lot of ways to explore how the technology can improve learning, and that's good, right?
Yeah.
If it inspires students to do additional work, I think that's great.
Yeah, and just to wrap up this segment, uh, I feel that because I follow the news on AI and the creators of all of these technologies, and the predominant promise of artificial intelligence is that it will expand our consciousness, it will expand our abilities. So we as humans need to partner with this technology to basically become sort of hybrid humans, where this technology extends our intellectual capacity into combating like the biggest challenges of our time. We're talking maybe world hunger or climate change or even becoming a multi-planet species, right? So the promise of this technology is that it will take us to the next frontier of human evolution. And I think part of me feels a little bit sad to see, like, for example, university institutions trying to block the use of tools like that, because basically
Mhm.
they're blocking human evolution. So I think the
Mhm.
the only reasonable thing to do, and I'm sure that you touched on that, is really to have that conversation, to really adapt and not resist, kind of thing. And I feel that this is where we sit right now in this technology.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I would add that for the university has the right to adapt in the way that it wants, and it should be open to discussion about this. And certainly, a faculty member teaching a class has the right to offer the class in the way that they want, and certainly that will include professors who want to use ChatGPT because they've recognized or want to explore the use of this kind of work. And I think it can lead to a lot of uh, uh, evolution, as you put it. I think it raises the possibilities for certain disciplines for sure, and I think as students come to use it, and we come to mentor, provide guidelines and protocols for using it, I think it can lead to uh, a lot of improvements in the way that other technologies have done so in the past. I like this term hybrid humans. I'd go forward to say is that we're already hybrid in a lot of ways. We already rely on technology in a lot of ways, either with the cell phones in our pockets, right? We walk around with them with our faces down a lot of the time. Um, uh, more attuned to what's on the screen. And certainly, there are people in this world who have technologies in their bodies, right, to regulate some sort of form of technology to regulate diabetes um, or pacemakers, or there are other forms of technology that we need in order to survive. So I think in many ways we're already this kind of hybrid. I almost said cyborg, but I was thinking about Star Trek and the sort
I
of
mean,
the Borg and how they sort of take over everything.
yeah,
But yeah, I think the way we evolve with this technology will be interesting to watch over time. How can we improve the environment? How can we improve climate change? If AI can get us there, I mean, I think that's a very interesting question to ask. If this technology is something that could be used to improve our climate.
yeah. I think right now is the best time for us to really, I was listening to one podcast, and the guy, I forgot his name, I'm sorry, but the guy says that today is the time where find the biggest challenge in your field, whether curing cancer or like
Mhm.
defeating all of these big problems that we thought they're impossible. Today is the time to take on that task, because
Mhm.
now we are equipped more than ever with all sorts of resources at our disposal to really do a lot of things. And I want to also linger on what you said about like being hybrids already. Have you heard of Elon Musk's company that is planting something in our brain to cure, to make people see, like,
Mhm.
blind people could see and handicapped
I have
people
not,
could move their
but I
bodies?
think I
It's
think that
crazy.
yeah, that's amazing. Right? It's reminds me of the Geordie LaForge character in Star Trek. But no, I think there's a lot of a lot of possibility for sure. I mean, think about the Google glasses that were. I'm not even sure if those are in production anymore, but I think there are a lot of things that we use that already like signal this evolving relationship with technology. And I think it can help us, be better. I mean, but I don't, I also, as a sociologist, I recognize that there is a dark side, right? What do we lose, right? What do we lose when we add another technology to our repertoire, to the way that we teach? What do we lose when and I think that's a valid question to ask as well. Maybe some people become better scholars by just slogging through a bunch of books and not worrying about what ChatGPT can speed up for them. Maybe they gain something by doing that and struggling with it. So I think, I don't think I think that the technology is important, but I think it's valid to think about what we lose, right? I mean, what did we lose when we started including PowerPoints into the lecture process, right? Um, right? How many faculty actually use the board anymore,
I love
right?
it. I just marked that piece where you're talking about this because I
Yeah.
feel that, oh man, you've said some really, really wise words here. Because no,
I
no, no
try.
joke, no joke. Because you're right. There's always a trade-off. Like when we start using mobile phones, how many phone numbers do you remember?
Yeah.
Like we really stopped remembering phone numbers
Hmm.
after having all the phone book there. So
Hmm.
the more we rely on technology, the less smart we become, or the less brain power, or it might be that the more efficient our brain works. I have
Hmm.
no idea, and
Yeah.
it's all about the future to determine all
Yeah.
of
I
that
agree.
stuff. Are we digging our own grave, or are we going to the utopia? Um, I want to go back
Yeah.
to
I can
AI and
only think
education.
about popular cultural references a lot.
I heard a lot of professors and teachers, even with high school. My cousin is doing some research on high school education and AI too, and she had all these questions that she was asking me. And then one thing is like like teaching assistants, right? Like there are, a lot of professors, they hire teachers assistant to help them grade, to help them develop lesson plans and all of that stuff. What if AI comes and become your teaching assistant, and then what happened to the teaching assisting role? Do these students will no longer have a job, for example?
Well, yeah, and that's one of the other ideas I had about the dark side of this, or the part that is worrying, is what kinds of jobs do we lose in education? For example, when we use this technology more. So, yeah, teaching assistants, you know, a teaching assistant in a K through 8 setting, being replaced by a technology. I come back to this idea of what do we lose? What do we lose to have another person in the classroom, let's say, that can help students, right? Um, right. I think there might be some gains in some ways for students, but in the terms of their learning. But what about the the socialization that goes on in schools, and and then what goes on in the classroom that a teaching assistant helps with, that doesn't involve student learning? Like, there are other kinds of help that teachers need. So, does that mean we're going to reduce the size of classrooms in order to make it more manageable for a teacher who's using artificial intelligence? Yeah, and I think there are other worrying aspects. I mean, what other positions can be eliminated because of ChatGPT or AI? I mean, these are important questions to ask, and I'm sure people are worried about this as well. I mean, uh, right? We have, I don't know how many hours in some online platform that include that people uploaded in order to teach their classes. I mean, that's all there, floating in some kind of platform, and then you know how could a university use all that material to replace professors? I mean, it's not that hard, right? If you're thinking about an online system that's only online, then you have videos and PowerPoints and notes already up there. So, yeah, I think the potential for jobs being lost is there, and I think that's also of a concern.
And I think, like personally, okay, I prepare for this podcast. I have a ton of things other than this podcast too. Like I'm building my own company and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. And you have no idea how I'm using this technology in so many creative ways that I feel that I should probably dedicate a video with screen share, so just to explain how I'm doing it. I have like OpenAI released something called GPTs. Okay, so these are
Mhm.
like basically custom built bots that you can design to really perform specific tasks the way you want them to perform. So I have these different GPTs that with one click I can generate. Like, for example, if I want to create an outline for our conversation, I can
Mhm.
just click outline. It will tell me, oh, who's your guest and what do you know about him? And I will take your LinkedIn profile, I
Mhm.
put it in there, and it will give me an outline exactly the way I programmed it to give me. Like the way that the type of questions I ask and the type of
Mhm.
topic I want to indulge in. And multiply this with all the other jobs that people have. So for me, it is 10x my productivity. So instead of having a team of people working for me to produce all of this work, I can rely on these bots to do that.
Mhm.
So in a sense, it makes one person achieve more, so that these people who are losing their jobs, they could probably start similar things and achieve more. And the whole
Mhm.
people will become more productive. So there is one upside of this, but also the downside is that when you lose your job and you have no idea of what to do next, this is when it becomes very scary,
Yeah.
because you really don't know where to go from here.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so I want to also talk about with you about the possibility of using technologies beyond just ChatGPT. So AI is not just ChatGPT. AI is
Right.
basically a huge data processing, data analysis machine. It's like they call it the big data, right? So I
Mhm.
was wondering, preparing for this podcast and knowing that you have a senior role in CSUSB, And I'm sure that even the time I worked as a graduate assistant at CSUSB, the idea of making sure that students complete their 4-year degree is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought of like, what if you just put all the data points we have on students into a big algorithm that will predict which student is going to complete that degree and which student will bail out at some point. And then now you have, let's say, a segment of students who are enrolled in college that you can target to make sure they complete their degree. So you isolate this segment and focus more energy on them to make sure that to help them out so that they don't quit.
And since we're talking about data that exists and perhaps AI using what exists and how to predict, I mean, the California State University system does have a dashboard where it tracks student outcomes. And through the analytics program, it does allow for uh, seeing how certain populations are doing within the system and sort of thinking about, and so signaling to administrators, oh, these are students that are not doing well. And then it sort of provokes the question, what can we do? What are the things that we can do to intervene? So if AI can somehow uh, uh, brainstorm or brainstorm about interventions or uh, brainstorm about possibilities for students to succeed better. I think that's another valuable way to use the program. But the CSU system has this information and it spends a lot of time thinking about how students are doing, and in a period where enrollments are down, what can we do to improve the experience for students currently, and then how might that provoke students who maybe normally wouldn't apply to our school. So I think that does have an important benefit if it can uh, uh, help us work with students better to make them successful. Yeah, I think that there is some use there for sure.
So
Yeah.
I think uh, choosing a major, right? So it is really, I remember when I was joining college, it was so hard for me to pick a major. I changed my major 3 times.
Hmm.
And even recently, I met another sophomore, David. He's a good friend of mine now. And he also has spent 2.5 years or 3 years in Cal State undecided. He didn't
Yeah,
know what major he wanted to choose. I think AI here could help too.
I agree.
I could imagine a chatbot taking you, and I could definitely, I could see myself doing it. I have the capability to do it. I could do a chatbot that takes all this information from this guy David, who's undecided, and it will help him guide him into a good major. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's one way to choose. Again, it it's very similar to a, 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 a guidance counselor, an advisor, or a mentor that we have. These programs exist on our campus. I think that's another way to use the program to get a second opinion. Let's say. I mean, but just listening to you talk, I thought about another valid way to use it is, let's say you're really interested in sociology. Um, but you go to your professors and they really are kind of vague on what you can do with your major. Perhaps we could use AI to say, okay, give me five areas that sociologists tend to find jobs in, and give me another five areas that where sociology training might be applicable to. And then that way, because there's also data on this as well that the CSU has collected, but give me an idea of where my BA can take me, right? If it's graduate school, fine, but what about other areas within the economy that I haven't thought about, or an area of the economy that people tend to go? I think this is this is also useful for information in the scenario you laid out, right? Because it gives you the entire, right, or it gives you a longer time frame, right? And I think that can be very useful. Yeah.
Dr. Jose, it's been a great pleasure to have you. The last question is really, I know you're big on equality and access. What would be your advice to young individuals who are venturing into college right now? What would be your last words of advice?
Well, I would say that I'm going to speak from the vantage point of being a member of this community, Cal State San Bernardino. I would say that this is a great campus, and I think we work hard to try to include students from a variety of backgrounds, experiences, social locations, and regions of the world. I think we want you to come to our campus and learn and interact and engage. Uh, I think if you come to our school, we have the resources and technologies available to help you. But I would also say that, as you move through university life, either here or somewhere else, is uh, there are experiences that might that are valid, that might at times conflict with university culture, and I think those experiences are important to acknowledge and to think about as you move through university. But at the same time, I've always felt that students also need to make their own luck. Uh, they need to reach out to professors. They need to reach out to career services. They need to reach out to their peers to think through what they're doing at the university campus. You want to take advantage of what's at the university, because we have several departments on our campus that are designed to help you. And just making an initial step is all you need in order to think about the world a little bit differently, think about your career a little bit differently, and lead to the things that you really want to do. It just means making that initial step and reaching out to people who are here to help you. It's my job to help you, and it's the job of the faculty here to help you. So you need to take advantage of that, knowing, coming to our campus, that we are here to serve you. Thank you.
Dr. Jose, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. My pleasure.